Hey dudes, welcome to Ask Tommy number 14. First question. How often do you get ghosted by potential guests on social media? A lot more often now than I used to. Before, almost everyone got back to me right away. And then over time, I've gotten a lot higher profile guests who have been badly burned by the press and whatever interviewers that they've, come in contact with. And also people, who may have skeletons in their closet, whether it's overt or covert or whatever. And so it happens a lot more frequently now that I got potential guests that I reach out to ghosting me. Sometimes I'll get a guest who gives me their number or their email, and then when I roll through, I never hear back from them. And then the moment that I get back to them, again, I try back again, they get all apologetic, especially when I give them more information about the podcast. Once they find out that I'm not going to burn them, that's when they get all enthusiastic about doing it. And in hindsight, they don't even seem that enthusiastic when I give them the pitch, and then they reply me back with what seems like a cheerful pitch, but it really isn't. So it happens a lot more now on social media than it used to. In email, it's always happened a lot, but the social media one is the one that happens the most, and it kind of pisses me off. I'll be honest with you. Why don't you interview more special effects makeup people? Well, quite frankly, I get bored um, when I do that. V. Neal was my first makeup effects person I talked to. She was great. She was fun, and she's one of my favorite interviews ever. But I got lucky with V. Neal because as great as a guest she was, I was a terrible interviewer then, and talking about makeup is not my forte. I know absolutely nothing about it. I think the last makeup person I talked to was Everett Birrell, who was a nice guy, and but he didn't really open up to me the way that I thought he would. So he was kind of the last one I talked to, and since then I haven't really gone after any special makeup effects people and stuff. I'm kind of interested in interviewing Jennifer Aspinall, who created the Toxic Avenger makeup, and I heard she used to work on Saturday Night Live. So we'll see, but I don't have much enthusiasm for it anymore. Talking to special effects makeup people, it's just I don't know anything about makeup, and I just get bored easily. And sometimes I think the guest is bored easily talking about makeup because they worked on so many iconic horror and sci-fi films that they've talked about 75 times. What's your favorite black and white Western movie? Wow, that's very specific. There are several I love. The Gunfighter, High Noon, Stagecoach, the John Wayne Calvary trilogy, Red River, stuff like that. Um, I like some Joel McRae stuff, like was it Wells Fargo? It was called, or the Tales of Wells Fargo, one of the two. Stuff like that. Any latest issues dealing with booking managers? Funny you should say that, because for over a year I went back and forth with a self-proclaimed booking manager for who was it? Gerard Christopher, from one of my favorite '80s movies, Tomboy, and he was one of the Superboy actors. Long story short, this quote unquote manager kept canceling my interview with him and making attempts to gaslight me, and I didn't take it. So the last time I had to deal with her was back in December, and that was the final straw. I gave her a piece of my mind, and guess how she reacted? No response, because I called her out and I fixed her wagon. So that was the latest one I dealt with a manager. I'm so glad that I never have to deal with managers. That I just get to talk with everybody directly. They can think whatever they want about me, professional, non-professional. I don't give a fuck. I got almost 2,600 interviews I'm coming up on. I got nothing to prove. I feel. What's a film that you feel every film student should watch? There's a couple. Um, Back to the Future, for one. It's a very important movie, as I've said many times on the podcast. Every aspiring screenwriter and filmmaker should watch that movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I think any aspiring filmmaker, screenwriter, and even novelist should watch that movie. It is just so transcending. It's definitely one of the best stories ever told about something that doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, I guess mental institutions do exist in some form. That's why people call 5150, but not like it once did. I mean, no one's getting electric shock therapy and getting lobotomies anymore, but that was during a very specific time when there was such a lack of humanity in the medical system, and there still is, but just in a different way, that I think people should definitely check out that one as well. So, Back to the Future and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, definitely. What's the best and worst thing about being a podcaster? Well, the best thing is that I get to have a candid, wonderful conversation with my idols. I don't necessarily have to deal with management. I get to take them anywhere in the interview, and almost every interview I come away with, I have so much wisdom and feeling good, even if it's a bad interview. You know, the worst thing about being a podcaster is there's no perks at conventions. You know, I've said this time and time again, we don't get to the front of the autograph line unless we have a VIP badge. We don't get access to the VIP room. We don't get instant interviews with the celebrities when we're at conventions. It's just bullshit. Conventions can be such bullshit. And, you know, it's become pretty much a clique and a cult, the convention world. You know, that's why I don't engage in it much anymore. It's just so much bullshit, and so many people will not cop to it, especially people who are in it will not cop to it, and they just like to lie and gaslight. You know, I mean, they don't want you around. If you're a podcaster, they don't want you around unless you have 25K followers at least. You know, I can't even host a panel at these conventions because I don't have 25K followers at least. So, fuck it. Are you ever going to do a tribute to an old Hollywood star again? It's been a while. You know, maybe it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work sometimes. You know, it's more work than fun. I mean, doing movie star tributes with historians are tricky because they can be jealous, resentful, and blowhardy, and family members are sometimes suspicious or sometimes, in some sad cases, mentally unstable due to their childhoods, and quite frankly, the motive for preserving their dead relatives' legacy is insidious sometimes, i.e., collecting their relatives' likeness for their own gain or whatever else. I mean, I'm in the middle of scheduling an interview with Kate Luckenbill, the daughter of past guest Lucy Arnaz, to talk about the re release of her grandfather Desi Arnaz's memoir. I guess that's kind of a tribute, but at least I know that family loves their iconic relatives because I had Lucy Arnaz on last year. So that's probably the closest I've got to a up and coming um, celebrity tribute. So we shall see. Now that you've interviewed almost everybody from a holiday themed movie, do you find yourself doing lesser holiday movie deep dives? Yeah, I mean, totally. If I, you know, from like, let's say 2020 till about 2023, maybe 2024 ish, I used to have guests for almost every holiday movie. But lately, in the last few years, I've had to cut back because I've had almost every one of them on from them. You know, this past Christmas was tough. I could only get about, you know, maybe two or three Christmas themed guest people, you know, maybe even less than three or two. But I do know it wasn't as it was in the previous years, and that's okay. I mean, I'll have someone for this year Christmas and see um, what I've got coming on for Thanksgiving too. Thanksgiving was hard this past year. Um, we'll see. I mean, so far this year I haven't been able to celebrate. I did. I did at least one rom-com for Valentine's Day this year, but I haven't been able to celebrate St. Patty's Day or Easter on the podcast. We'll see what Thanksgiving and Christmas has in store. I never have, as you know, I never have a shortage of Halloween guests. I always got Halloween guests for horror. What's your favorite memory of making out with a guy? Ooh, I like this one. Well, the first New Year's Eve that I was out of the hospital in 2015, I went to my local bar. I won't say the name, but I met this dude. He was in his early 20s. I was 32. He was with two girlfriends of his, and we made out. It was great. And this one bartender, I remember I had known her since just before my accident. She started working there maybe 2 weeks before my accident, and she never really talked to me much until after she saw me making out with him. She could finally trust me, it felt like. And so we talked all the time after that. Now, I did get the dude's number, and I wanted to go further after making out, but he was not down for it, not down for committing. And quite frankly, I remember I had a talk with one of the girls later, and she told me, yeah, he's very insecure, and he loves getting drunk. He's going through a bad period in his life, blah blah blah. I hope he got out of it, and I hope his life is much better than it was at that time. But the memory of it was really good. Is that Jill Vance Keenan nerd out ever going to happen? I don't know. At this point, it doesn't look like it. I reached out to her around Thanksgiving time this past year, and she said, sure, and then she told me to follow up with her in a couple of weeks. I did, and then she ghosted me, and then I tried two more times in December, and she ghosted me again. If she doesn't want to do it, that's fine. I can't make her, of course. I had a good first and only interview with her in 2024. She's a fun character. I like her overall, but if she doesn't want to do that nerd out, that's fine. The other reason she did that was because I think because of Lisa Everett's, being a mutual friend. I think that's the only reason she came on my podcast, because she generally doesn't do podcasts. She did hers, and then she did mine. So whatever. If we don't do a nerd out, it's okay. As an 80s metal fan, what are your thoughts on the Stephen Pearcy and Jason Green feud? Well, I think it's fucking hilarious because I met both of them last June at the Hollywood show in Burbank. And what I took away from my brief interactions with both of them, and they were brief, they are guys that have two prideful, narcissistic personalities, but of a different breed. Percy, who actually didn't mind my interaction with him, he was decent, but he had this hubris about him of like, I'm Stephen Pearcy, of course I'm the best, kind of arrogance. But again, he was decent, he shook my hand, I had no problem with him. Whereas Jason Green was more like, I hope nobody finds me out. His energy in hindsight was that. At the time I was like, what the hell is with him? I mean, he's a pretty good podcaster. He gets these great hair metal people. Like, what's his issue? So this is what happened. I'm in line to get Stephen Pearcy's autograph, and there's all these people in front of me and back of me, and Green starts passing out some flyer and without me paying attention, he hands it to me. And then when I turn my head and realize it's Jason Green, I'm like, oh, hey, Jason, Tommy Kovac, fellow YouTuber. I love your show, man. I love how you're keeping 80s metal alive. He realized who I was in hindsight. He heard my voice and realized who I am, because I'm always commenting on his videos, and he used to respond to them. I don't comment on them anymore because he never responds anymore. But he gave me this kind of side eye with a snarky grin on his face, and the look on his face kind of said, I'm scared. And he says to me, I'm trying, not even looking at me in the eye, and then walking away. He said, I'm trying. So that said a lot about who that guy is. So I don't have any respect for him anymore, and I'm enjoying the '80s metal community's response to this publicized mess between these two. What is your Burger King order? Wow, two rodeo burgers, sometimes fries, sometimes onion rings, and a Diet Coke. I can't stand milkshakes from any burger chain anymore. They just are not the same anymore. You know, they just are pulpy, nasty, and they have whipped cream. It's a fucking Burger King or McDonald's. It's not a Red Robin. Why do you put whipped cream on your milkshakes? All you fast food burger places. Can someone tell me that? I have no idea why. What is your daily exercise routine? I walk 30 to 45 minutes a day. I masturbate a couple times a day, and I do arm exercises with a weight. It's not a shake weight, but it's like a shake weight only without the shake. What is the origin of your sign off? No shame living in the past because the present sucks. I literally came up with that about 10 minutes before recording the first episode. For days I was thinking of what I'm going to say at the beginning and end of each show. And for the end, that just came out of me like 10 minutes beforehand. I was like, finally, I could stop stressing over it and I could start recording. So I did. And it stuck with me. People tell me all the time they love that sign off. You know, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes. Is being bisexual easy? Only when you meet open minded, accepting people. Closed minded, intolerant people is another story. So, is it easy? I guess. You know, I guess. I mean, I've got a lot of girlfriends that talk to me, so I guess it is easy in that regard. Have you ever stopped being friends with a podcast guest because they're always negative? Oh yeah. There's a guest I had on twice in the early years. We became quote unquote friends because I was new to the podcast world and I didn't realize how fake and disingenuous people can be. Not saying that she was that per se, but I believed a lot of people. Just like I believed people in real life who hurt me before my car accident and stuff. But she told me at the end of our first interview she wanted to be friends. And every time I would give her a pre consented phone call, she would say, "Hi, what can I do for you? Why you calling?" or something like that. And this person had initiated friendship, and it really, really hurt my feelings. And it bummed me out that she would say that to me, you know. And it got to a point where I was just like, I'm calling for friendship because you initiated it. You know, I'm just calling to say hi and hello and seeing if you're doing okay, you know? And I can't remember what she would say, but she would just like not even care. It seemed like, and I got to meet up with her for coffee in LA in 2019, and it was fun. My mom met her. Everything was great, you know. But then one day during the pandemic in 2020, I called her for the last time because once again she was like, okay, what do you want? And then saying, you know, she said a lot of negative things about the pandemic and saying that our whole way of life was going to be over. Quite frankly, she sounded like she had had a couple of cocktails in hindsight. But I never called her again after that because I got tired of the negativity every time I called her. And I do love her. I wish her well, but I hope she's in a better place now. I will tell you, I sent her a DM on Facebook a few months ago and she ghosted me. So that's that. If she wants to talk to me, she'll talk to me. If not, that's fine. But I do care about her and I do wish her well, as I said. Who's your favorite 80s metal band of all time? Oh, Motley Crue would be the number one. I love Bon Jovi's early stuff. Dawkins, Rat, Autograph, Warrant. Europe, Y&T, Great White. I also love stuff from Mr. Big, Bullet Boys, Trickster, Cinderella, select songs, not their whole catalog like the other bands I mentioned, but for the most part, I'm not an 80s metal snob. I mean, there's certain bands I like better than others, but I love 80s metal. I'll listen to anything, anytime. Are you the nerdiest member of your family? Oh, by far, yes. Everyone in my family is smart and passionate about many things. They all love pop culture and entertainment, but I'm definitely the biggest nerd out of all of them. Has your energy changed from the time you started the podcast until now as you get older? Oh, fuck yeah. In the early years, I was caffeinated or high and a little nervous, and I was in character as Tommy Throwback Kovac, my surfer dude persona, and I wasn't asking super deep questions yet. Now that I'm relaxed, confident, I think my questions are a lot harder, and I run a fine comb through them on a daily basis before I ask them because I want to make sure I'm not asking dumb questions. That's what my biggest fear is now, dumb questions. I don't want to ask any dumb questions because everyone's asking dumb questions on YouTube podcasts. I'm so disgusted at a lot of the podcasts that I watch now because these people have answered these questions 75 million times. It's like, can you come up with new stuff? It's really weird. And there's a lot of celebrities that are high maintenance and they want specific questions that other people may not ask that they usually don't get with other people, and that's fine, but I want to ask really, really good questions. What kind of food have you eaten the most in your life? Pizza. Being that I'm half Italian, I am a pizza holic. I love pizza. I will eat pizza at any time. Domino's, Round Table, Costco, Pizza Hut, all those in my hometown, Shoreview, San Mateo. I am a pizza holic. I cannot tell you how much I love pizza. You know, I'm not a big fan of high end fine dining pizza. I mean, there was a place in South San Francisco called Dinopolis that we used to go to when I was working at a bar down there, and as high end as it was actually pretty good because they used cheddar cheese, and the crust tasted like takeout crust of like some of those places that I was mentioning, but it was a fine dining Italian cuisine type place. They just happened to have pizza for delivery. But I'm generally not like a fine dining, high end kind of a pizza guy. I do love Chicago style pizza. Oh, Chicago pizza is the bomb. Haven't had it in quite a while. I gotta have it. I am due for a Chicago style pizza in the future. Love it with mushrooms and pepperoni and all that fun stuff. Sausage, of course, Italian sausage. Oh, the best. The best. And finally, what guest death in 2026 has shook you the most so far? By far, Jennifer Runyon. She, her death hit me the hardest. She was a ray of light, a ray of sunshine, a lovely person, and I really wish I had gotten to interview her one last time and meet her at a con. That will always be my major regret. They've all hit me hard, I won't lie. Every single one of them. It's funny. All the ones I love or like, they've all passed away, and then the ones that I didn't like so much, they haven't passed away. I don't know, maybe that's a good thing, you know, but several people I really, really loved have passed this year since it started. Corey Parker, Steve Hibbert, Prudence Wright Holmes. I think the closest to one I didn't like very much was Billy Steinberg. But whatever. I'm not gonna badmouth him. He was a great songwriter. Regan Wilson was great. Harry Tenowitz, I found out, late that he died last year. And same thing with Ruben Train. I was late to the party on those guys. Mark Jones, despite the fact that he was Scott Baio's um, co-host on his podcast later, I still like the guy. He was a decent guy overall. And yeah, all those deaths have hit me hard. I mean, once 2020 rolled around, about 2021 we started losing a lot of my guests, and it keeps getting worse each year. Anywhere from 8 to 12 guests I lose, sadly. It's a part of life, I guess, but it's sad. Jennifer Runyon, it'll always be my major regret that I didn't get to meet her or interview her one last time. She was wonderful. Well, that's it. Later, dudes. Happy Easter.